Sottotitlos, benvenuti, welcome to the Music Polyglot channel. Now, this being the Music Polyglot channel, you'll find good quality subtitles down there. Today we're going to have a look at mood. I'm going to show you two things. I'm going to show you first the recorded part, which is what you saw back there. So actually, you know, if you are a professional player or a very advanced guitarist, that's all you needed to know to play the track as it is on the record. So you can go get him, Tiger. I'm also going to show you a bit later a way that you can play open chords with the little riff embedded. In case you want to not play to the track, but if you want to play and sing, for example, on an acoustic guitar, I'll show you that in the second half of the video. So let's get to it. Let's do a close-up. Okay, so this tune is made up of one chord sequence that has 4 chords in it that repeat over and over and over and over again. So that's the cool thing about it. We only need to learn one chord sequence. Let me show it to you. I'll play it for you first so that you can see what's going on. Let me play it up to tempo first. Let me play that for you slowly so that you can see more in detail. So it goes 1, 2, 3, 4. Cool, let's break it down. We start off with those 2 notes. This is kind of an implied E flat major chord. We have our index on the 5th string, that's the A string, 6th fret. It gives us that note, which is an E flat. And then we add the pinky, so that's your pinky finger on the 2nd string, that's the B string, 8th fret, and you get that G. Okay, so it's just those 2. Now notice, because we're strumming with a pick, the strings in the middle, so the G string and the D string, we don't need them. We actually don't want them to ring out, so we have to mute them, okay? So that you only hear the bottom E flat and the G on top, so the 5th and the 2nd strings. Now how do you mute? Well, you make sure that you are pressing down on that E flat, so on the 5th string. But then you also make sure that you are laying your finger over the higher 4 strings so as to mute them like that. Okay. Now you don't want to press down because you don't want to bar it. You don't want anything to ring out. So it's really lightly touching the strings, lightly keeping your index in touch with those 4th and 3rd strings. Okay, that's how you get that. Cool. So you're going to strum twice on that. We'll call it E flat because that's what it is. So, okay. And then you take off your pinky. You replace it with the 2nd finger, but on the 6th fret, like the index. They're both on the 6th fret now. Same deal with the G string and the D string. You're muting them. Okay. That's your 3rd strum on that E flat add 9. So you have, right, 2 on the E flat, 1 on the E flat add 9. From there, so you strum and immediately after you slide. Right, the point is to get to this new chord, which is an implied G minor. You have the index on the 10th fret of the A string, and then your 2nd finger is on the 11th fret of the B string. Okay, so that's something worth noting. When you slide up, we start off on the same fret, but as we get to the chord, your 2nd finger needs to move 1 fret further up than the index. Okay, is that clear enough? So we have, and then you strum that E minor again. So perfect. So moving on, we have B flat power chord type of thing. It's not the way we're used to playing power chords though. So let's break it down. We have the third finger on the D string 8th fret, gives you a B flat. Then with the index, we're going to be partially barring or double stopping two strings, the E string and the B string, both on the 6th fret. Okay, so you get that. It's a partial barré. And same deal as before with the G string. You want to mute it, so you don't want to hear it. The easiest way to mute in this case is to actually make sure that with the tip of your index, you are touching that G string enough so that it doesn't ring out. You don't want to be over it. You don't want to be on top of it because you don't want to hear the note. You want to hear that muted sound. Okay, so that's just by pressing the tip of your index against that string. You get that chord, which is a B flat power chord. You strum it once, then you add your pinky on the 8th fret, strumming again, and then you pick only the top string with the pinky still on, and you slide up 2 frets. Okay, so this little passage is this. Okay, again. As you slide up, make sure that you don't take off your fingers completely because you'll get a mess out of open string sounds and noise. Okay, so to avoid that, notice how I leave my fingers over the strings that they were playing. I'm not pressing down because I don't want to hear fretted notes, but they're still on the strings so as to mute them. Muting, as you can see, is very important in this kind of pattern. So. And that's our last chord, which is an F major. What's happening here? Index, 8th fret of the A string, gives you an F. Then you have the power chord, the 5th, with the 3rd finger on the 10th fret of the D string. So it's that note. And then the pinky on the 2nd string, 10th fret, playing that note, which is an A. So it's a full F major chord. Again, with the G string, we don't want to hear it. So we're muting that as we did on the first chord with the index. So the index is gently rubbing against that G string so it doesn't ring out, right? Cool. That is it. So we had right. Now there's a tiny little difference on the second time around. Check it out. See if you can spot it. This is the second time then. Did you notice on that last F chord? Yeah, we don't have the pinky. It's just we don't have that. It's just the power chord. A tiny difference. But that's what happens on the record. So that's what I'm showing you now. So all together, again, slowly, now that you know what's happening, it's this. If you want to play along, I'll count it in. 2, 3, 4. Right, that's a pretty cool pattern, and that repeats over and 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 over again till the end of the song. All right, so apart from showing you the recorded part, I wanted to show you a part that you can play if you're not playing along to the track, or that's not really what you're after. If you want to play and sing or play chords on an acoustic guitar, etc., etc. I'll show you what you can do to achieve something quite cool. So you're going to need a capo. And the capo goes on fret 3. Now, every time that I refer to the frets, I'm going to start counting from the capo. Okay, so fret 1 will be this one, fret 2 will be this one, and so on. Okay, same for the shapes. When I say C, it's obviously, that shape, all relative to the capo now. Speaking of, we start with a C shape, but tell you what, let me play you the part a couple of times so that you can see and hear it. 3, 4. Alright, so that's quite cool because you get the little melody that you have on the original, plus you get full big open chords. So if you're playing and singing, this might be the way you want to take things. So let me play it again, but this time slow, super slow, so that you can see what's going on. So here we go. 2, 3, 4. Let's break that down. C major to begin with, you strum it twice. Make sure you can hear that high E really clearly because that's your melody. For the third strum, you turn that C major into a C add 9. That's by adding the pinky on the 3rd fret of the B string. Right, now when you do that, you want to restrain your strumming so as not to play the high E string. You don't want to hear that one because the melody is actually that note there, which is an F or a D in the context of a C. So you have, okay, so you're going to hear that. And then you move on to an E minor, but with the pinky on the 3rd fret of the high E string. Okay. Now, pro tip, check out how when you move from the C major to the E minor, check this guy out, this second finger. It doesn't need to move. It's not changing frets, it's not changing strings or anything. So you can use it as an anchor and try not to move it when you move on to that E minor. Okay. This is also why I suggest that you play E minor with these 2 fingers in this particular song, in this context. I'm sure that most of you will be used to playing E minor like that, and then you can add the pinky, that's fine as well. But if you play it like this for this song, it makes that change so much easier. So I suggest you do that. Carrying on. So after we move on to a G, and this is the simple G with just 3 fingers. Strum it once, and then you add the pinky. This is why you wanted to leave it free. So you add the pinky 2 frets further up. So this is going to be the 5th fret relative to the capo on the high E string, right? You're strumming the full chord in both cases. Then, like you did in the original recorded pattern, you pick only the high E string, still with the pinky, and you slide up 2 frets. So, okay. Yeah, for that, obviously, you have to let go of the shape with the other fingers. And then you land on a D major. Okay, so you have perfect, all together. Okay, so as you can see there, we're keeping the same rhythm as the original track there. Obviously, feel free to, if you're strumming away, especially in an acoustic guitar, feel free to make it your own, you know, to take that rhythm further, to add variations, etc., etc. You can come up with something quite cool if you start strumming away as well, you know, make it your own. I don't know, something like... Right? So if you come up with something very strummy, you know, that can be something really cool as well. All right, so there you have it. It's a fun song to play, and I hope that second part as well might prove useful to you. Now, if you want to have tabs or sheet music to any of the two parts that we just looked at now, or if you're having trouble with the rhythm, for example, and you want an extra video on how to address that little thing, all that is available to my Patreons on my Patreon page. The link's below, so why not consider becoming one yourself? Thank you very much for staying till the end, and I'll see you next time. Hasta la prossima, arrivederci, au revoir.